Hello, everybody. Welcome to the next session, the next episode of the podcast Inspiring Educators. You know what? Today I have a rebel with us, somebody who loves revolution, somebody who wants to bring the best to everything that she does. Experience ranges from you name a curriculum and she's seen it, and led schools, led communities. So much to explore. I'm not going to take stage time here at all. I present to you Farzana, who is right now executive chairperson of Crimson Education. You know, it's a group that runs 25 schools pan-India with a mix of CBSE schools, Cambridge schools, and ICSE schools. And just the pre-dialogue before the podcast that I was having with her, 10 minutes and I'm already in love with her. So I present Farzana to you. Farzana, could you please introduce yourself?
Hi, greetings to everyone who's listening to us, today.
So, Farzana, if you could just share how you started your journey and how did you get into education?
I got into education by chance.
Okay.
It was not a career path which I had chosen. I was studying to be a lawyer, and I got married. I got my first baby, and I don't know, maybe God's destiny. I lost my first baby when my baby was, I think, about 5 months old. And I was really upset, your first child. And my sister was into education. Mm-hmm. So she used to be part of a pre-primary chain of schools. And she said, and a trustee is no more there. But she said that bring your sister, let her be with children and she will forget her loss. So that was my first taste into schooling and teaching. And, I was in a different zone and I wanted to be a legal person and, and what else. I enjoyed teaching so much that sometimes I think God had destined for me for this to happen, to be able to do a change in my gears of career, path. And I did my B.Eds, then I did my M.Ed, I did some training overseas. And that's how I got into the journey of being an educator. Started small, started as a teacher, grew to be a vice principal. And that's when the IB, that's the International Baccalaureate Education, was just being talked about in the world, especially in the Asia Pacific. And that's when I became an IB coordinator for my school. And that's how my journey into education really zoomed. So I thank my IB bosses for whatever I am today, because they gave me a lot of exposure.
Superb. So I think you mentioned to me in our conversation that almost 17 plus years with IB education, and of course, maybe 2.5 decades of education. You must have seen so much changing over these last 2.5 decades. And staying relevant, which is the most difficult thing today. You not just maintain that, but you also kept growing. So how did you do that? What has been your motivation? What really drives you?
Basically, I am a person and I say age is just a number for me, and if someone can do something, I want to do better than that. Not as a competition, but as a landscape where I think I can do so much more for children. Right. And maybe I think it's my legal background which pushes me to argue, look at the pros and cons and say, hey, you have to do it, Yeah. So just to share, I'm talking now maybe 20 years ago, when the computers had just started into the industry, and I used to type, with one finger like this. And I would be always dependent on my secretary to do stuff. And hey, my husband once said to me, I think you're quite empowered and emancipated and you think you can do everything. That sort of hit me, and I said, hey, I must be able to do my own stuff, because there are certain things which you don't want to share even with your secretary, which you're writing or typing. And the first day I sat on my computer and it took me over an hour just for one A4 size paper. I did not know I had to save the document. Ooh, it went. I literally was crying, and I can't forget that experience for me. And from then till today, whenever I think back, I said, oh God, if actually that had not happened to me, I would have not been such a dynamic person into tech, And so the change you said over the years, one thing I've seen is pedagogy has remained quite similar, because I was working so much, as you have said to the audience, 17 years into international education. So I've done a lot of trainings overseas. I have trained a lot of teachers. So somehow I always, when people ask me, are international schools, are IB schools something, different? And I say it's a myth. What is important is the way the teaching and learning happens. Because for a child, content, if I have to teach grade 1 something about plants, I have to teach only so much. Yeah. Because that's the maturity of the child. I can't teach him some rocket science in grade 1. Yeah. So content wise, all the boards are very similar. But it's the pedagogy and it's the teacher-student connect which is different. So through my years, I have seen the schools which have smaller class sizes and spend a lot of money on teacher training, they have been ahead of the curve.
Right.
And those that live on past laurels to say, I am the best school. Hey guys, put a mirror in front of you, because 5 years down the line, there'll be 5 other schools who are doing much better than you. And parents, and today, one more thing I have to share with the audience. Most of it is a parent-driven demand. So schools have changed because parents have demanded different things. Now parents are actually, they were fed up of the rote learning.
Right.
Because it used to be, I always joke in most of my presentations, how schools used to function is you finish school, your driver is waiting down, you have your sandwich, have your juice, you run from one tuition to the other, you hit back home, you're exhausted. So there is no time for creativity, sport, other hobbies which a child may have. Right. That's where I think international education brought a sea change, which also had its impact on national education, that they said, hey guys, let's do everything in a very different way. So because the content same, pedagogy different, the children couldn't go for tuition classes. They had to pay attention in class and learn by doing. So experiential learning, classroom practices, all this thing came about in a very different way, And that's where I feel is the success story of schools. If they have invested, I will not even say spent, invested money in teacher training, teacher resources, rather than fancy infrastructure. So I can have an air-conditioned school, a swimming pool. They don't get their kids. And you have a simple school down the road doing excellent work with their teachers. They are houseful.
So I was having this conversation recently with somebody, and out of nowhere this thought came. And I shared it with them. I'll share it with the audience today because I've never shared this with anyone on the podcast before. So I see there are 3 kinds of schools now, right? The schools which are so happy with what they have been doing in the last 20 years that they don't even realize that even when parents are coming to them, they're like, no, this is how we are. And they don't realize that they're losing the game slowly. The second kind of schools who have started listening to the parents, and whatever the parents come and demand, they say, okay, we will develop this, and they keep adding, and they're slowly, gradually growing, right? They are a bit behind the curve, but they're still growing. But then the third type of schools which are following Henry Ford model, right? So Henry Ford would always say, if I went out to the world and asked them, what do you want? People would have told me, we want faster horses. They would have never imagined a car. There are schools which are really redefining and building methods of teaching that even parents can't imagine are possible. And then when parents come in and see them doing things, the parents are awed. So for example, the moment you mentioned these kind of schools who say that we're going to change the pedagogy and make it so relevant that the students will not and cannot go to a coaching center because it will be a different pedagogy, and tuition centers will never be able to match it up. So people will be self-motivated. They will have to create intrinsic motivation and extrinsic motivation to learn whatever is being taught. And these schools will always stay ahead of the curve. They will always have high demand. They will always have parents queuing up outside, and they would not have enough seats. And the moment we become this third kind of school, we need to have the right teachers. We need to have the staff which can really build this, world-class, innovative pedagogy. And it cannot be done with those air conditioners or with those fancy buildings. It will be done by the team. And so rightly said by you, right? That if we have the right set of team, if we have the right teachers, then you can build anything that you want. But then, Farzana, quick question here that's coming up to my mind. Teaching in itself has changed so much, right? Of course, it has changed in the last decade, but the last 3 years, we've seen a sea change, right? Pre-pandemic, then during pandemic, and now post-pandemic. And I see teachers struggling. I'm sure you see teachers struggling, but I'm sure you would have found some solutions. So what are you doing right now?
Basically, schools who were very tech savvy, who were very much like the G Suite schools, Google does a lot of free service teachers, and they give you a lot of advice. So there were many schools, especially in the metros, who were ahead. So when the pandemic struck them, their children had Gmail IDs, their teachers had used online platform. So it was a very smooth transition. But I would say 95% or even more actually struggled for the first 1.5 months. Because teachers, especially very good teachers, but the older teachers who never used technology in the classroom, they found it so difficult. Like I know of a friend, super biology teacher. I can say she's better than the best, but never used technology. She would like to use the chalk and the board and teach. When pandemic struck, she was on such a steep learning curve because she was a passionate teacher. So I have seen teachers who didn't want to use tech suddenly wanted to upgrade themselves. So that has been one of the advantages of the pandemic, that we've got hordes of teachers. I would say most of our teachers will become tech savvy. Now that is a big thing. Because post-pandemic, I am sure we will have hybrid classrooms. Whatever reason, like suppose Mumbai, where I am based, if there are heavy rains and floods, we used to have to keep our school closed. School closed. Now we will just send off an email saying, today it will be online classes. This is the link. Please get on. So teaching never stops, And that's where I think pandemic again has helped us. Another thing which post-pandemic, which we have seen, is many other ways of teaching and learning. For example, I'm sure you know about the flipped classrooms. So because again, in India, the government was very strict about the type of time, screen time every child would get. So it was not possible for the teacher to show the video, talk about it, and use different types of tech tools. So flipped classroom became very popular. They would send the video as a homework, watch it over the weekend, and we'll discuss about it in the next week. But now they find that such a convenient mode. So the flipped classrooms have continued in most of our schools because they think, hey, I'm not wasting teaching time, because they're watching it and they're coming back and we are discussing it. And again, these teachers are trained and we do a lot of modules with them. For what? That it has to be a sharp teacher to know who has watched and not watched. Because some will say, yes, miss, we have all watched. But 2 questions she asked, she knows who has watched and who has not.
Absolutely.
So again, that keeps the children on their feet, that, hey, this teacher is cool, she knows exactly. So we have tried to upgrade the skills of our teachers, especially with our pre-primary. During pandemic, we used a lot of augmented reality because, having the lion, when I'm talking about animals and I have the lion next to me, the baby is very difficult to draw their attention on a small box. But gimmicks like this, they would say, wow, Mrs. got a lion. And, the whole thing, the whole perception of watching changes, But now we brought it post-pandemic to the next level. We are still using augmented reality as sort of, I would say, as a motivation. Hey guys, if you all do all this, then at the end, the last 10 minutes, we will watch an augmented reality video of me and the dolphin or me and whatever. So now they do all that stuff because they want that to see it because they enjoy it.
So it's become an extrinsic motivation tool now.
Exactly, that you've got the right words for it.
Right.
Another thing which we've seen is, especially in smaller towns, because as I said, we have presence in schools. We've got some very small town schools also. It's not possible to take them on a field trip to see many things,
Right.
because वो गांव में या वो तालुका में वो चीज ही नहीं है. So
Right.
where do they take these children? So pandemic taught us about the virtual field trips.
Okay.
So now we have collated all the free virtual field trips, and they have a list. So if I'm talking about this, I can hit on this and show it to my children. So sitting in my classroom, maybe in a very small town in Bangalore called Tumkur, they are able to watch something happening maybe in the Miami Zoo,
Wow.
So that is taken it, the pre and the post pandemic. There have been a lot of changes in the way we teach and learn.
Right.
And
Right.
hats off to the teachers. They have really
Absolutely.
opened up everything, especially the maths teachers, Rishabh, They said, difficult without a blackboard, I need a tab. So we sent tabs to them, and then they would use that whiteboard. And, they wanted, because
Right.
maths is something I can't just talk. I have
Right.
to show them the steps.
Right.
So I think maths teachers did the
Hats off.
best job of
Yeah.
everyone to take the kids into the next level.
Right.
So it's been interesting.
It always used to be this question, will technology replace the teachers? And I would always answer that no, technology, I don't know, but teachers who know technology will for sure replace the teachers who don't know technology. And pandemic kind of hit that button so hard that everybody who could not handle technology was replaced by teachers who could replace technology. But then now where we are standing, as a world, as educators, and with so much happening in technology, how relevant is this question today, according to you, that can technology replace the teachers? Do you think, will there ever come a time in the near future, let's say 5-7 years?
I don't think that time will come, because that personal, physical, look and say with a teacher is a different thing. Of course, I can learn a lot through, but for example, you have the robotic surgery where the surgeon has to have the skill to use the robot, artificial intelligence, to do the surgery. So the human is necessary. Same way the teacher may use a robot in a classroom. When I am unwell, the robot can go and teach.
Right.
But I am the one who has fed the robot with the content which is going to be delivered.
Right.
So I don't think a human, a teacher can ever be replaced. She will have to sharpen her claws and sharpen the axe, to say, so that she is able to be this 21st century teacher required.
This is good news for me and my entire team. We are a teacher training company, so at least we are not going out of business for near future. So, on that very note, as a teacher education research and development organization, what we have noticed globally, and I'm talking about almost all countries around the world, everybody's facing a skilled teacher shortage. Not a teacher shortage, but a skilled teacher shortage. And one of the main core reasons that has always come out in most of the researches, at least in the last 1.5-2 years, is that the shortage is not because the teachers are not good or whatever, but it's majorly because new people are not getting attracted towards teaching. Younger generations are not becoming teachers. So first of all, have you felt the need of more teachers, and have you ever felt the skilled teacher shortage? I'm sure you would have ways to resolve your skilled teacher shortage, but
I think this is a gap which every educator and especially head of schools is facing today, of getting that shortage of skill. And what happens, I may have a skilled teacher, but tomorrow the neighborhood school knows, hey, this Miss X is very good, poach her and pay the next 10,000 rupees more. For me, 10,000 is not a big thing. And I always tell my teachers, come and have a chat with the HR,
Yeah.
If someone is offering you more, take it, ask us and take it, rather than moving to a new organization where you have no clue. You are part of a family here and you're moving into a new environment just for a few bucks,
Right.
I know people need the money, so you can't stop them.
Yeah.
But I think skilled teachers, of course, that's one way of poaching, and there is a paucity for all schools. Another is uh, the type of education our teachers get and the type of training that happens is not getting them ready for the classroom environment. They have all the theories. Ask them all the educational psychologists. They can tap. I think they'll know it better than me also. But how do you put theory into practice? They have practice teaching. They do have practice teaching, but I don't blame them also, because it's a short stint. So how can you develop a teacher? It's more the development, hand-holding, which is so important,
Right.
And that's where, like they say, you have a rough diamond, you need to polish it for it to have some value. And that's what I think guys like you and your companies and people like us, we do. I mean, that's what we do in our academic management, is not tell them what to teach, but how to teach.
Absolutely. So on this note, because Farzana, you've been somebody who's inspired hundreds and thousands of teachers and thousands of students. You are the right person who can actually talk about the teaching profession as a whole, right? Many youngsters whom I've talked to, they feel, teaching is not challenging enough. It's not rewarding enough. But we who have worked in education, we know that it's one of the most challenging jobs. It is very rewarding in every format. Today, the world that we are into, it's financially rewarding as well. There's the kind of personal work-life balance that teachers get, no other profession gets out there. The kind of time you get for yourself and for your reflection, nobody gets out there. So if we had to package all of these right thoughts and paint a picture about the teaching profession for the next generations, how would you want to describe the teaching profession as, with a small thought in the mind that this statement of yours, we are going to take it out of the podcast and share it with millions of students, globally, and say, this is why you should become a teacher? How would you paint the teacher's profession as?
I would say that the first thing I would say is you need to be passionate about the profession, because only when you have a passion for something, then everything else falls in place. Second, I'm quite, a person who says it's not all about your B.Eds and M.Eds, because degrees sometimes don't matter. I get a lot of postgraduates, even doctorates, and oh God, when they open their mouth, I'll say, yeah, thank you, we'll get back to you, because value nahi. But there I meet this young media person who comes for something else, and I say, hey, can you teach English? And she says, yeah, I'm interested, but I'm not trained. I said, okay, I'll put you into a B.Ed program. You do a 2-year part-time course, but you come and teach. The reason is because these young children, they come with a passion and they teach it differently. Just to share one small thing, there was this very experienced PhD principal, and there was this young guy teaching in an international school. The IB has a program called Theory of Knowledge, TOK. Okay, that's talking about, and you question everything. So because it was a large cohort of children, they divided between the principal and this teacher, young teacher. He was IIM graduate, and so he's coming from a very different mindset. And she was very open. She wanted to learn. So she said, I am really wondering why most children want to opt for your class and not mine. If they were given a choice, I'm experienced here. Can I come and watch your class? I want to see what do you do that I don't do. I am more experienced. I have a PhD and kids want to come to your class. I said, ma'am, you're most welcome. I don't do anything, I think you're more learned than me. So she was very open. She said, I want to come to your class. So she came to the class, and at the end of the class, when they met back, she says, I know the trick. You connect the real world to the theory world. And that's the success story. I talk theory which bores the children. You have connected anything which was currently happening. He was bringing a cartoon, a newspaper, and, using the TOK as a background, he was teaching. So I learned something. So sometimes, very old and experienced teachers need to be shaken up and say, hey, there are different ways of doing the same thing. But then again, you have the old guard who thinks we know it all. Exactly. Nobody can come and tell me how to teach. I've been teaching. I'm a gold medalist and I've got so many awards and the works, And I think this is the type of teachers we have. I have another engineer who did his B.Ed because he was very frustrated with engineering and he didn't like. Super teacher, connects with the boys in the class. So I have felt someone who didn't want a career, who did a career change and trained to be a teacher, is a much marvelous and a much out of the box type of teacher that today's world and time needs.
Right.
You can't just have page 42. I have done it 20 times. I have to share something with you, something very interesting. My IB students, I met them once after alumni meet, and I said, hey guys, how is college? All good, fun, Miss, we enjoyed. I said, tell me one thing that you don't like, in college from school. Miss, why did you teach us to question so much? Because as a group in college, when we bunk, our teacher says, where is that group? I don't have anybody to challenge me and ask me questions. We get caught, Miss, every time when we bunk, because she said that group is not there. Miss, if we were not taught to ask questions, we would not be caught. So, sometimes in these international schools, you learn different types of, ways of learning, which is the need of the new world. So I think it's not necessary that if I have carved out and learned and done my training, that I will be a good teacher. You could be in any career. If you are not happy in that career, switch gears, do your training. I think you will be a much better, and you'll be a very happy person. Because at the end of the day, when you go to bed, you feel satisfied. You've been able to do something to change someone's life.
Absolutely. As a teacher, even if we touch, say, 100 lives per annum, over 10 years, it becomes 1,000. And if each one of them kind of gets married and, later on and has 4 people in the family, it's 4,000. And the kind of impact that we create, and most of the people who are not teachers are not able to impact, usually 10, 100 lives, but you're talking about thousands of lives getting impacted. What could be more challenging and rewarding than that? So completely with you on that.
For me, I, of course, as you introduced me, I do a lot of work with groups in education, but I also work with the Maharashtra Bal Bharti. Okay. That is, it's the local SSE board, and that's the department that prints books. Right. With the NEP 2020 coming in, they wanted to bring their books to have a transdisciplinary approach. Everybody wants their children to grow. And when they approached me, my heart went out, because that is going to impact thousands. Absolutely. I am supposed to train grade 1 teachers. 65,000 teachers is what they've said you will be impacting. And I said, oh God, sort of I got goosebumps that every word I'm going to speak is, and they enjoy it, because I'm talking about thinking strategies. I'm talking about, reduce, reuse, recycle, but in a different way, also giving them examples which they can do. Right. So when I talk about thinking hats, Edward de Bono's strategy, I said, guys, you don't need all these hats. In your small taluka school, you don't have, it's okay. Paper lo, newspaper ko red paint karo, and just wear it. That becomes your red thinking feelings hat, Yeah. And it's really taken this whole teaching learning to a different level. So imagine one workshop you do and you impact, and what you said, that multiplication effect. It's huge. God is kind, is all I can say.
Yeah, 65,000 teachers really means 65 million learners. Oof, oh God, that's a lot of learners, right? And imagine
and that is, many people think, why should we do? We are not paid for it, Everything is not about money for me. For me, it is satisfaction. For me, it is giving back to the community. What you have done, you make your money in your own ways, but give back to the society. If someone has made me from a rough diamond to a polished diamond, I need to pass on this legacy to many more. I don't want to die saying, she knew so much, she never taught anyone. So there have to be more angels around who can help more people.
I'm sure there'll be such a huge fan following that you would have, so many teachers always wanting to spend time with you because of the work that you've done. And I'm sure they would be always looking forward to learn from you. And one major, again, a very quick question that's coming to my mind is, let's say if somebody wanted to know, or somebody wanted to have a cheat sheet, Farzana's cheat sheet, that if you're sitting in an interview with Farzana, she's always going to look for these 3 to 5 qualities in you. What would be those qualities be?
First, I want an all-rounder. Definitely. I don't want someone who's very good with physics. I want someone who's good with physics, but also art. I want someone who can play with my children, sing with my children, because that's the role we play, So if I am teaching something, let me connect transdisciplinary learning. So if I'm teaching even in a primary class about water, can I do the Jaltaran and give them the effects of music by using different bowls of water? I am looking at a person who doesn't wear horse blinkers. That's my second thing. Okay? Right. No horse blinkers. I am open to the world. Third, is able to take constructive criticism.
Beautiful.
Because many times I always tell teachers when I train, there are many mispronounced words in English. Right. And when you speak something incorrectly, if a colleague or friend corrects you, you feel very upset.
Yeah.
She thinks she's the master in English, trying to tell me how to pronounce this word. And I say, guys, till today I am learning. Someone can come and tell me, hey, you did this wrong, or this is the better way to do it. I'll say, thank you very much.
Yeah.
So accept it if someone tells you, and say, thank you. Yeah. If in the future you hear me saying something incorrect, come and tell me. Because if I pronounce it correctly, I will be able to teach so many of my children. And you know how children are, for them, teacher is their God.
Yeah.
Even I know many times when my son was much younger, would go to school and he would pronounce a word incorrectly, and I would say, no, it's this. And he would say, you don't know, ma. My teacher said this, and that's right. So I would have to send a sweet note to the teacher, says, can you look it up in the dictionary very gently, because she's a teacher. Can you look it up and look at it, and can you tell the class the word is pronounced in such a way? Gently you have to do it, because you hurt egos.
Absolutely. So the person has to be an all-rounder, the person has to be open to learning, the person has to be should be able to receive critical feedback. These are the top 3 things.
And has to be tech savvy. Has to be
tech savvy, right? That's
in today's time you can't do without. And also has to be a very mindful, empathetic teacher.
Right.
That's so essential. These qualities are so essential.
Right.
I had a child who he'd come from Thailand. He'd seen his parents dying. He was very upset. He didn't know the English language. Neither he knew Hindi. He used to speak Thai. But because there was nobody, his aunt brought the kids to India. And he would come to school. When the children would talk something, he would take them and he would just bang them. Because he would feel that they are telling something bad about him. And they said, Miss, we are not even talking about him, but he can't understand. So I would call him into my office and then he would cry, because then he would feel upset that I did it wrong. His emotions were all over the place because he'd seen his parents being shot, So I spoke to him and I would counsel him, and every time lot of love and care I would give him. Now I met this child, and that's the fruit of being a teacher. I met this child after about 10, 12 years, okay? He passed off, moved on in his career, and he came to say hello to me. And I said, hello, Miss, you recognize me? I said, to be honest now, bada bacha, dari wari ho gaya tha, he looked huge. I said, no child, I don't recognize you. I said, Miss, if you remember, I'll tell you what you used to tell me. And that's where the impact came on me. Miss, every day you used to tell me, boys never cry. So why are you crying? Talk about it. Take out your emotions, I immediately connected and I said, hey, you're from Thailand. He said, yes, Miss, I'm that same child, And today, but that impact, sometimes you make statements as a teacher, you don't know the impact. So that is why we have to be so mindful.
Absolutely.
We have to be so empathetic. And especially after COVID, lots of children have lost their parents. So it has been an issue.
Wow. this last 20-30 minutes of conversation, we've actually touched so many areas with this last point of really understanding not just what that child has to learn, but also what is the background of that child, what is he feeling while he's learning. And if somebody is actually able to manage these multiple things together, it would actually make an outstanding teacher. That was so well explained by you. Thank you so much for that. Finally, last segment of the podcast. Would you like to share a message for the future teachers, people who are coming in, to join teaching? What would you like to share with them? And if you would like to send a welcome message to them.
Welcome to a career which will always give you joy, and it will always keep you busy. But remember, it's a most rewarding career. There is nobody who says these are your targets, meet the targets. They're saying these are your children, nurture them. So you are nurturing the future generation, not the corporate making the next profit. So guys, join our family, join our fraternity. You will enjoy it, and God bless you all.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Farzana. And that's all for today's episode, everyone. I am sure you enjoyed the conversation as much as me and Farzana enjoyed that. We'll be meeting you soon with more notes, with more podcast sessions, with more videos of these inspirational educators who have really created a dent in the world education system, not just Indian education system. Thank you so much for being with us, everybody. See you next week. See you soon with the next podcast. See you. Bye.